Chapter 1. Stop hustling blindly, the exhaustion trap. Close your eyes for a moment and think about your typical Tuesday. You woke up to an alarm that felt like a personal attack. You checked your phone before your feet hit the floor. By 9 a.m., you were already in the thick of it. You answered emails, you sat in meetings, you solved fires that other people started. You didn't stop for lunch. You just ate a protein bar while staring at a spreadsheet. By 7 p.m., you were physically and mentally spent. You crawled into bed feeling like you'd been through a war. But here is the haunting question. What actually changed? If you look at your primary goal, the big dream, the promotion, the business launch, the masterpiece, did it move forward? For most people, the answer is a devastating no. This is the exhaustion trap. It is the most common reason for burnout. It isn't the workload that kills us. It's the realization that we are working ourselves to death for a result that never arrives. We have been conditioned by a hustle culture that worships effort but ignores outcome. We've been taught that if we aren't exhausted, we aren't trying. But I am here to tell you that exhaustion is not a strategy. It is a symptom of blindness. True relentlessness starts with clarity, not effort. If you are running 100 miles an hour in the wrong direction, speed is your enemy, not your friend. To be relentless, you must first stop. You must look at the map. You must ensure that every ounce of sweat is being converted into a foot of forward progress. The dopamine of busyness. Why do we do this to ourselves? Why do we choose busy over effective? The answer lies in our neurobiology. When you answer a quick email or check a notification, your brain releases a tiny hit of dopamine. It feels like progress. It's a micro-win. By the end of the day, you might have had 200 of these micro-wins. Your brain tells you, wow, we did so much today. But your soul knows better. Your soul knows that the big, scary, meaningful work, the work that actually moves the needle, was ignored because it didn't offer that instant dopamine hit. We hustle blindly because it's easier than thinking deeply. Thinking is hard. Choosing one priority and saying no to 20 other things is terrifying. It requires us to take responsibility for our direction. When we just hustle, we can blame the clock or the boss or the grind for our lack of results. But if you want to be relentless without burning out, you have to kill the busy version of yourself. You have to stop seeking the cheap dopamine of small tasks and start seeking the deep satisfaction of singular progress. Real-world case, the corporate ghost. Consider the story of a professional I once worked with named Mark. Mark was the definition of relentless in the traditional sense. He was the first person in the office and the last to leave. His calendar was a jagged mountain range of overlapping appointments. He prided himself on his responsiveness. He would answer a Slack message in 30 seconds, even at 10 p.m. Mark was exhausted. He was on his second marriage, his health was failing, and he felt like he was stuck in the mud. Despite his 80-hour weeks, he hadn't received a significant raise or promotion in 3 years. When we audited his time, the truth was startling. Mark was spending 90% of his energy on maintenance, keeping things from breaking, and 0% on momentum, building things that grow. He was reactive, not proactive. He was a professional fire extinguisher. I told him to do something that terrified him. I told him to stop working at 5 p.m. and to spend the first 2 hours of his day with his phone off, working only on the one project that would make his boss's boss take notice. At first, he felt guilty. He felt lazy. He missed the dopamine of the constant pings. But within 3 months, he had completed a strategic overhaul that saved the company 6 figures. He got the promotion. He got his weekends back. His energy returned because his actions finally had a destination. He stopped running on the treadmill and started running on the road. Mark didn't need more effort. He had plenty of effort. He needed direction. The law of directional energy. Energy is like light. If you take a 100-watt bulb and turn it on, it lights up a room. It's pleasant, but it's diffuse. It doesn't change anything. But if you take that same 100 watts of energy and focus it through a laser lens, it can cut through steel. Relentless people are lasers. Burnt-out people are light bulbs. Burnout happens when your energy is scattered in 1,000 directions. You feel thin, like butter scraped over too much bread. You are tired not because you did too much, but because you did too many things that didn't matter. When you have clarity, when you know exactly what the one thing is, your body actually produces more energy. Have you ever noticed how, when you are excited about a specific project, you can work for hours without feeling tired? That's because your brain is no longer wasting energy on the friction of what should I do next? Or is this worth it? Clarity is a fuel source. Uncertainty is a drain. The audit. Finding your North Star. To stop hustling blindly, you must perform a ruthless audit of your life. You need to identify your North Star. Ask yourself, if I could only accomplish one thing this week that would make everything else easier or unnecessary, what would it be? Now, look at your calendar. How much of your hustle is dedicated to that one thing? If it's less than 50%, you are in the burnout zone. You are spending your life force on the thick of thin things. Being relentless is about the courage to ignore the noise. It is the ability to look at an urgent but unimportant task and say, not today. It is the discipline to protect your best energy for your best work. Closing reflection. As you move through the rest of this book, I want you to carry one thought with you. Every time you feel that familiar tug of exhaustion, every time you feel like you are spinning your wheels, I want you to stop and ask, am I moving or am I just busy? You have a limited amount of heartbeats in this life. Do not waste them on movement without meaning. Do not burn your candle at both ends if the light isn't showing you the way home. The path to the top is not a sprint. It is a calculated climb. Each step must be intentional. Each breath must be focused. When you know where you are going, the fatigue feels different. It feels like a down payment on a victory, rather than a tax on your existence. Remember this, write it down, repeat it as you walk. Direction creates energy. Direction creates energy. Direction creates energy. Stop the grind. Find the path. Chapter 2. Discipline is not intensity. The heroic fallacy. Close your eyes and picture discipline. What do you see? Most people see a montage. They see a boxer in a dark gym at 4 a.m., sweat flying off their forehead, veins bulging, screaming through one last rep. They see an entrepreneur fueled by 4 energy drinks, staring at a glowing monitor until their eyes bleed, pulling an all-nighter to finish a pitch deck. We have been conditioned to believe that discipline is a high-voltage, high-emotion, high-intensity event. We think it's a push. We think it's a grind. I call this the heroic fallacy. The heroic fallacy is the belief that greatness is achieved through massive, unsustainable bursts of effort. It's the idea that if you aren't suffering, you aren't working. But here is the cold, hard truth. Intensity is the enemy of relentlessness. Intensity is a sprint. Relentlessness is a journey. If you approach your life with 100% intensity every single day, you are not being hardcore. You are being inefficient. You are redlining your engine. And just like a car engine, if you keep the needle in the red for too long, the metal will warp, the oil will burn off, and the machine will seize. True discipline is not the ability to push yourself to the brink of collapse once a month. True discipline is the ability to show up on a boring, rainy Tuesday when you feel like a 5 out of 10 and do the work anyway. It's not about the height of your peak. It's about the consistency of your floor. The motivation trap. We often confuse discipline with motivation. They are not the same thing. In fact, they are opposites. Motivation is an emotional state. It's a feeling. You watch an inspiring video, you hear a great speech, or you have a sudden realization that your life needs to change, and, boom, you feel motivated. You feel like you could run through a brick wall. That feeling is wonderful, but it is also dangerous. Why? Because feelings change. Feelings are influenced by how much sleep you got, what you ate for lunch, the weather outside, and whether or not your partner is annoyed with you. If your discipline relies on your motivation, then your success is a hostage to your mood. When you are intense, you are usually riding a wave of motivation. You work 12 hours today because you're on fire. But what happens tomorrow when the fire goes out? What happens when the dopamine wears off and the work feels heavy and dull? Most people stop. They wait for the next spark. They become motivation junkies, waiting for a hit of inspiration before they start moving again. A relentless person doesn't care about the spark. They care about the engine. They have replaced the bursts of intensity with the rhythm of discipline. They don't ask themselves, "Do I feel like doing this?" That question is irrelevant. They do it because it is what they do. The 70% rule. Lessons from the elite. Let's look at the world of elite performance. If you study Olympic marathon runners, world-class powerlifters, or professional musicians, you will find a surprising pattern. An amateur runner goes out for a jog and thinks, "I need to run as fast as I can until I can't breathe." They push at 95% intensity. They come home exhausted, their knees hurt, and they are so sore the next day that they can't run again for a week. They had a great workout, but they have zero consistency. An elite Kenyan marathoner, however, spends about 80% of their training time running at a conversational pace. They are moving at about 60% to 70% of their maximum effort. To an outsider, it looks like they aren't trying that hard. They aren't gasping for air. They aren't collapsing. Why do they do this? Because they know that the secret to winning the race isn't the one intense workout. It's the ability to stack 365 days of good workouts on top of each other. By training at 70%, they stimulate their heart and lungs, they build their aerobic base, and, most importantly, they recover quickly. They can wake up the next morning and do it again. This is the secret of the relentless. They prioritize the ability to repeat the action over the magnitude of the action. If you work 18 hours today but are so burnt that you spend the next 3 days scrolling through social media because your brain is fried, you have lost. You would have been much further ahead if you worked 6 focused hours every day for those 4 days. In the first scenario, you worked 18 hours total. In the second, you worked 24 hours total, and you didn't feel like a shell of a human being afterward. Intensity is an ego trip. Consistency is a strategy. The calmness of professionals. There is a specific vibe to true discipline, and it isn't aggression. It's calmness. Think about a surgeon. If a surgeon walked into the operating room screaming, "Let's go," beast mode, 110% effort, you would get off the table and run for your life. You don't want an intense surgeon. You want a disciplined surgeon. You want someone who is calm, methodical, and repeatable. You want someone who has performed that same incision 10,000 times with the same steady hand. The same applies to you. Whether you are building a business, writing a book, or getting in shape, you need to move from amateur intensity to professional discipline. A professional doesn't need to be in the mood. A professional has a process. They approach the desk, they open the laptop, and they begin. There is no drama. There is no internal negotiation. There is no pumping yourself up. When you remove the need for intensity, you also remove the friction of starting. It's easy to start a task when you know you're only going to put in a sustainable effort. It is very hard to start a task when you know you are about to torture yourself with 100% intensity. By lowering the intensity of each individual session, you actually increase the likelihood that you will show up. And in the long run, showing up is the only thing that matters. The compound effect of the boring. Relentlessness is built in the boring moments. Our culture loves the big win. We love the viral video, the overnight success, the massive transformation. But if you peel back the layers of any big win, you will find a mountain of boring, low-intensity, disciplined actions. It's the writer who writes 500 words every morning before the kids wake up. It's not a heroic amount of words. It's just 2 pages. But they do it every day. After a year, they have 2 novels. It's the investor who puts $200 into an index fund every month, regardless of whether the market is up or down. They don't check the news. They don't panic. They don't hustle the stocks. They are just consistent. 30 years later, they are millionaires. Compare that to the person who tries to day trade with high intensity, staying up all night, stressing over every tick of the clock. Most of those people lose everything within a year. Their intensity was their downfall. Success is a slow cooker, not a microwave. You cannot rush the process by turning up the heat. If you turn the heat up too high, you just burn the outside while the inside stays raw. You have to keep the temperature steady and let time do the work. Actionable strategy. The sustainable standard. How do you implement this? You start by setting what I call a sustainable standard. Instead of saying, I'm going to go to the gym for 2 hours every day, which is a high-intensity goal, say, I'm going to move my body for 30 minutes every day. The 30-minute goal is repeatable. It's sustainable. Even on your busiest day, you can find 30 minutes. By making the goal smaller and less intense, you remove the excuse to quit. When you feel that urge to go beast mode, when you feel that burst of motivation and want to work until 3 a.m., I want you to catch yourself. Ask, can I do this every day for a month? If the answer is no, then stop. Pull back. Save that energy. The goal is to finish your day feeling like you could have done a little bit more. If you end every day completely empty, you are living on borrowed time. But if you end every day with a little bit of fuel in the tank, you will wake up the next morning with your momentum intact. Closing reflection. The world is full of shooting stars, people who burn bright for a moment, dazzle everyone with their intensity, and then fade into the darkness of burnout and obscurity. Do not be a shooting star. Be the sun. The sun doesn't scream. It doesn't struggle. It doesn't try hard. It just shows up every single day, at the same time, with the same steady output of energy. And because it is consistent, it sustains life. You don't need to be more intense to reach your goals. You need to be more predictable. You need to be the person who can be counted on to deliver, regardless of the circumstances, because your discipline is built on a foundation of sustainability. Stop trying to be a hero for one day. Start being a professional for a lifetime. When you feel the temptation to burn yourself out in a blaze of glory, remember this. Consistency beats intensity every time. Consistency beats intensity every time. Consistency beats intensity every time. Keep your head down. Keep your pace steady. Stay in the game. Systems aren't just about calendars and to-do lists. They are about the physical and digital spaces you inhabit. If you want to stay relentless, you must curate your world so that it pushes you toward your goals rather than pulling you away from them. The power of the template. One of the most effective ways to build a system is through templating. Think about the tasks you do repeatedly. Do you write emails to clients? Do you create weekly reports? Do you plan your meals? If you are starting from scratch every time you do these things, you are wasting energy. Relentless people template everything. They have scripts for common conversations. They have checklists for recurring projects. They have a uniform for their workdays. Think of Steve Jobs' black turtleneck or Mark Zuckerberg's grey t-shirt. These people aren't boring. They are protective. They realize that by templating the low-value parts of their lives, they free up their brilliance for the high-value parts. They don't want to spend their genius on what to eat for lunch. They want to spend it on solving the world's problems. When you template your life, you create a railway for your energy. Instead of being a four-wheel drive vehicle trying to navigate a muddy forest, you become a high-speed train on a track. You can go faster, with more weight, for a longer distance, because the direction is already set. Dealing with system failure. A common mistake people make is thinking that a system must be perfect. They spend weeks designing the perfect routine, and the first time a child gets sick or a meeting runs late, the system breaks and they give up. But a true system is resilient. It includes contingency plans. If your system is, I go to the gym for an hour, it will break when you only have 20 minutes. But if your system is, I move my body every day, then on a busy day, you just pivot to a 20-minute walk. The system didn't break, it just shifted gears. The goal is not to be a slave to your system, but to let the system be your servant. When you are tired, the system should be what keeps you moving. When you are overwhelmed, the system should be what tells you what to ignore. Relentless people don't panic when things go wrong because they trust their process. They know that even if they have a bad day, the system will put them back on track tomorrow morning. Closing reflection. Stop trying to grit your teeth through your career. Stop trying to out-hustle your own biology. You are a human being with a limited supply of daily focus and a limited amount of willpower. If you want to achieve things that most people only dream of, you have to stop acting like most people. Most people hope they will have a productive day. Relentless people ensure it by building structures that make failure difficult. The more you automate the how of your life, the more energy you have for the why. Take a look at your biggest goal. Now, look at the daily actions required to get there. If those actions require you to be inspired or brave every single day, you will eventually burn out. You need to build a machine. You need to turn those actions into a routine that is so boring and so automatic that you could do it in your sleep. When the system is strong enough, the results become inevitable. You no longer have to try to be relentless. You just have to show up and let the machine work. As you look at the obstacles in your path, don't ask for a stronger will. Ask for a better system. Systems remove friction. Systems remove friction. Systems remove friction. Build your rails. Then let yourself run. Chapter 3. Build systems that carry you. The myth of the iron will. We love the idea of the self-made hero who succeeds through sheer force of will. We imagine the high achiever as someone with a supernatural ability to resist temptation, someone who wakes up and forces themselves to be great through gritting teeth and clenched fists. We call it iron will. But if you actually study the most relentless people on the planet, the writers who have published 50 books, the entrepreneurs who have built 3 consecutive successful companies, the athletes who never miss a workout, you will find a secret that is almost disappointing in its simplicity. They don't have more willpower than you. In fact, they rarely use willpower at all. Willpower is a finite resource. Think of it like a battery on your smartphone. When you wake up, it's at 100%. But every time you have to make a choice, should I get out of bed now or hit snooze? Should I have the salad or the burger? Should I start that report or check Instagram? The battery percentage drops. By 4 p.m., most people are running on 5% battery. This is why you're more likely to snap at your spouse, binge watch TV, or eat junk food in the evening. Your willpower is depleted. Relentless people know that willpower is too unreliable to build a life on. Instead of relying on a battery that is constantly draining, they build power grids. They build systems. A system is a pre-decided path that carries you toward your goal whether you feel like it or not. If you want to be relentless without burning out, you must stop trying to be stronger and start trying to be more organized. You must move from negotiating with yourself to automating your life. The high cost of decision fatigue. The silent killer of productivity and the primary driver of burnout is something called decision fatigue. Every day, you make thousands of tiny decisions. Most of them feel insignificant. But your brain doesn't distinguish between what color socks should I wear and how should I structure this $1 million proposal. Both require a spark of cognitive energy. When you live without a system, your entire day is a series of exhausting negotiations. You sit down at your desk and ask, okay, what should I work on first? You spend 15 minutes looking at your inbox, 10 minutes looking at your to-do list, and 5 minutes staring out the window. By the time you actually start working, you've already spent 20% of your daily energy just deciding to work. Burnout isn't usually caused by the work itself. It's caused by the friction of getting into the work. It's the mental exhaustion of constantly having to start the engine. Systems remove that friction. When you have a system, the decisions are made in advance. You don't ask what to do. The system tells you what to do. You don't ask when to do it. The calendar tells you when to do it. By eliminating the need for choice, you preserve your cognitive energy for the actual execution. Real-world example, the automated creator. Consider the difference between 2 professional creators. Creator A relies on inspiration. They wake up and wait to see what they feel like making. They have to decide what the topic is, find the right lighting, figure out where the camera is, and motivate themselves to get started. Some days, they are brilliant. But many days, they are overwhelmed by the blank page. They spend so much energy on the setup that they have nothing left for the substance. Within 2 years, Creator A is burnt out and has quit. Creator B relies on a system. They have a content engine. Monday, research 10 ideas. Tuesday, script 3 ideas. Wednesday, film in the studio corner which is always set up. Thursday, edit. Friday, distribute. Creator B doesn't need to be inspired on Wednesday. They just need to stand in the spot they've already designated and read the script they've already written. The process is automated. They don't negotiate with themselves about whether they should film today. The system says it's Wednesday, so filming happens. Because Creator B isn't wasting energy on decisions, they can produce 5 times more than Creator A with half the stress. They aren't harder workers, they are simply better engineers. They have built a system that carries them. Environmental design, the invisible hand. A major part of any system is your environment. Most people try to be relentless in an environment that is designed for distraction. They try to focus while their phone is vibrating on the desk, their email notifications are popping up on the screen, and their kitchen is full of unhealthy snacks. This is like trying to swim upstream against a powerful current. You can do it for a while, but eventually you will get tired and the current will wash you away. A relentless person designs their environment to make the right actions the path of least resistance. If you want to work out in the morning, you don't decide to find your gym clothes at 6 a.m. You put them on your nightstand the night before. You put your sneakers in front of the bedroom door. You've created a system where you would practically have to trip over your gear to not go to the gym. If you want to focus on deep work, you don't try to ignore your phone. You put the phone in another room. You use a website blocker. You make it harder to do the wrong thing and easier to do the right thing. Chapter 4. Protect your cognitive energy. The ghost of exhaustion. Imagine you've spent 8 hours sitting in an ergonomic chair in a temperature-controlled office with a bottle of water and a bowl of fruit nearby. You haven't lifted anything heavier than a laptop. You haven't run a mile. You haven't endured physical labor. Yet, when you stand up to leave, your body feels like lead. Your head throbs. You feel a level of exhaustion that seems disproportionate to your physical activity. This is the ghost of exhaustion. It is the primary reason why high performers hit a wall and stay there. We have been trained to think of energy in physical terms, calories in, movement out. But in the modern world, the most precious resource you own isn't your physical strength, it's your cognitive energy. Your brain, while only accounting for about 2% of your body weight, consumes 20% of your total energy. Every thought, every focus shift, every filtered distraction, and every choice you make burns a specific amount of glucose. If you want to be relentless, you have to stop treating your mind like an infinite well and start treating it like a high-performance battery. If you waste that battery on trivialities, you will have nothing left when it's time to be great. The decision overload crisis. The average modern professional makes upwards of 35,000 decisions a day. Some are big. Should we pivot the company strategy? Most are tiny. Which font should I use? Should I click this notification? How should I word the opening of this email? Each of these decisions, regardless of its importance, takes a bite out of your cognitive energy. The real-world example. Consider a project manager named Sarah. Sarah is relentless. She starts her day at 7 a.m. by checking her phone in bed. By 9 a.m., she has already navigated 50 Slack messages, scanned 3 news sites, and decided what to wear. By noon, she has sat through 3 meetings where she had to stay on, filtering out background noise and processing complex information. By 3 p.m., Sarah is decision fatigued. She has a crucial report to write, the kind of work that would actually advance her career, but she finds herself staring at the screen. She clicks over to a news site. She checks her phone. She tells herself she's just not in the mood or lacking motivation. But Sarah isn't lacking motivation. She's lacking fuel. She spent her best cognitive energy on the daily noise of her job, and now her brain is entering low-power mode. Because she doesn't understand that energy is a finite resource, she pushes through. She spends 3 hours on a report that should have taken 45 minutes. The quality is mediocre. She goes home feeling like a failure, not realizing that she simply ran out of the very fuel required for excellence. Sarah's mistake was thinking she could hustle her way through mental bankruptcy. She didn't realize that energy is a resource, not a mood. The attention residue trap. One of the most dangerous drains on your cognitive energy is something researchers call attention residue. Most people think they can multitask. They believe they can quickly check an email and then immediately go back to deep, focused work. But the brain doesn't work that way. When you switch from task A to task B, a portion of your attention stays behind on task A. Your brain is still processing that email you just read, even while you're trying to write a business plan. Every time you switch contexts, moving from a spreadsheet to a text message, from a meeting to a creative project, you pay a switching cost. This cost is a direct tax on your cognitive energy. If you switch tasks 20 times an hour, you are essentially leaking energy. By the afternoon, you aren't just tired, you are cognitively fragmented. Relentless people protect their deep work sessions with a ferocity that borders on the obsessive. They know that a single hour of uninterrupted, high-energy focus is worth more than 8 hours of fragmented hustle. They don't switch, they finish. They don't check in, they dive in. The digital vampire. We live in an era designed to steal our cognitive energy. Every app on your phone was engineered by teams of psychologists and engineers specifically to capture your attentional glucose. Every notification is an open loop. When your phone pings, your brain has to make a decision. Do I look at that? What could it be? Is it important? Even if you don't pick up the phone, the cognitive energy required to ignore the ping is almost as high as the energy required to answer it. You are being bled dry by 1,000 tiny digital cuts. To be relentless without burning out, you must go on the offensive against these digital vampires. You must realize that your focus is your most valuable asset. If you give it away for free to every app and advertiser that asks for it, you are sabotaging your own success. Turn off the notifications. Close the extra tabs. Put the phone in a drawer. You aren't being antisocial or difficult, you are protecting the fuel you need to build your legacy. You are acknowledging a fundamental truth. Energy is a resource, not a mood. The myth of powering through. When we feel mentally exhausted, our instinct is to drink more caffeine and power through. We think that if we just sit at the desk long enough, the work will get done. But cognitive energy has a point of diminishing returns. Once the battery is drained, more time does not equal more results. In fact, powering through often leads to mistakes that take twice as long to fix the next day. It leads to poor communication that damages relationships. It leads to the kind of deep, soul-crushing burnout that can take months to recover from. Relentless people have the wisdom to know when their battery is low. They don't see mental fatigue as a character flaw, they see it as a data point. When they hit that wall, they don't reach for a fourth espresso, they reach for a recovery strategy. They understand that pushing a dead battery doesn't make it work, it just breaks the machine. Strategy, the cognitive budget. How do you protect this resource? You start by creating a cognitive budget. Do the heavy lifting first. Your cognitive battery is at its highest in the morning for most people. Use those first 2 hours for your hardest, most important task. Do not check email. Do not check the news. Do not make small decisions. Spend your gold on your gold tasks. Batch the shallow work. Save the emails, the phone calls, and the administrative tasks for the afternoon when your battery is naturally lower. These tasks require less focus fuel. Close the loops. At the end of every day, write down the 3 most important things for tomorrow. This unloads the information from your brain so you don't waste cognitive energy remembering them all night. Practice digital minimalism. If it doesn't serve your mission, it shouldn't have access to your attention. Period. Reclaiming the day. When you start protecting your cognitive energy, something miraculous happens. You stop feeling fried at 5 p.m. You have the energy to play with your kids, to work on a side project, or to simply enjoy your evening. You realize that your lack of motivation was actually just lack of fuel. When the fuel is there, the motivation takes care of itself. You become relentless because you are no longer fighting against a dead engine. You are a well-maintained machine, running on high-quality fuel, focused on a single destination. You are not a victim of your moods. You are the manager of your resources. The world will try to tell you that being tired is a sign of hard work. Don't believe them. Being tired is often just a sign of poor resource management. If you want to go the distance, if you want to be the one who is still standing when everyone else has collapsed, You must guard your mind with everything you've got. Stop treating your brain like a garbage disposal for information. Start treating it like a sanctuary for focus. Whenever you feel that urge to distract yourself, whenever you feel that brain fog creeping in, remind yourself of the stakes. Energy is a resource, not a mood. Energy is a resource, not a mood. Energy is a resource, not a mood. Protect the asset. Do the work. Stay relentless. Chapter 5. Learn the power of strategic rest. The pit stop paradox. Imagine you are a Formula One driver. You are behind the wheel of a multimillion-dollar machine, hurtling down a straightaway at 200 miles an hour. Your heart is pounding, your focus is absolute, and every millisecond counts. Suddenly, your crew chief's voice crackles over the radio. Box, box, box. Time for a pit stop. Do you argue with him? Do you say, I can't stop now. I'm in the lead. If I stop, I'm being lazy. If I stop, I'm losing momentum. Of course not. You know that if you don't stop, your tires will shred, your fuel will run dry, and your engine will explode. You don't see the pit stop as a delay. You see it as the very thing that allows you to finish the race. The pit stop isn't a break from the race, it is a vital part of the race. Yet, in our professional and personal lives, we treat rest like a dirty word. We treat it as a reward we only deserve after we've collapsed from exhaustion. We view it as a sign of weakness, a lack of ambition, or a luxury for those who aren't as hungry as we are. This is the greatest lie of the hustle culture. If you want to be relentless, truly, sustainably relentless, you must stop viewing rest as a reward and start viewing it as a performance tool. You must understand that you don't rest because the work is done. You rest so that the work can be done at an elite level. The science of supercompensation. To understand why rest is mandatory, we have to look at the biology of growth, specifically a concept called supercompensation. When you go to the gym and lift heavy weights, you aren't actually getting stronger in that moment. In fact, you are doing the opposite. You are tearing your muscle fibers. You are stressing your central nervous system. You are leaving the gym weaker than when you walked in. The growth happens afterward. When you sleep, when you eat, and when you rest, your body enters a state of repair. It doesn't just fix the damage. It builds back the muscle slightly stronger than before to handle the next stressor. That build back is supercompensation. If you go back to the gym 2 hours later and lift again, and then again 4 hours after that, you never give the body the window to repair. You aren't building muscle, you are just destroying it. Eventually, you end up with an injury that sidelines you for months. Your brain works exactly the same way. When you push through a complex problem, when you grind through a high-stakes project, you are stressing your cognitive muscles. You are creating mental micro-tears. If you never stop, you never supercompensate. You never become smarter, faster, or more resilient. You just become more brittle. Relentless people aren't the ones who work the most hours. They are the ones who manage the stress and rest cycle with surgical precision. They know that recovery fuels momentum. The elite performance model. If you look at the schedules of the most successful people in history, you'll find a shocking amount of downtime. Take, for example, elite violinists. A famous study conducted at the Berlin Academy of Music looked at the differences between excellent students and good students. Everyone expected the excellent students to be practicing more hours. But they weren't. Both groups practiced about the same amount. The difference was how they practiced and how they rested. The elite violinists practiced in intense, highly focused bursts of about 90 minutes, followed by a nap or a long break. They also slept significantly more than the average students, averaging 8.5 hours a night. They weren't working harder, they were recovering harder. Because they were fully recovered, their 90 minutes of practice were of a vastly higher quality than the good students who were grinding for 6 hours straight in a state of semi-exhaustion. The same is true for elite athletes. A professional NBA player doesn't just play the game, they have a recovery protocol that is just as rigorous as their shooting practice. They use cryotherapy, massage, hydration targets, and strict sleep schedules. They don't do this because they are tired. They do it so they won't be tired when the fourth quarter begins. If you want to play in the big leagues of your industry, You have to stop acting like a weekend warrior who grinds until they break. You have to start acting like an elite performer who schedules recovery with the same intensity they schedule their board meetings. The 4 pillars of strategic rest. Rest is not just not working. If you spend your evening scrolling through social media or watching the news, you aren't resting. You are still consuming information. You are still triggering your stress response. Your brain is still on. Strategic rest requires intention. It falls into 4 main categories. 1. Sleep, the foundation. Sleep is the ultimate performance-enhancing drug. It is when your brain flushes out toxins and moves information from short-term to long-term memory. If you are sleeping 6 hours or less, you are operating with the cognitive equivalent of being legally drunk. You cannot be relentless if you are impaired. 2. Sensory rest. We live in a world of constant noise, bright lights, and digital pings. This creates sensory overload. Strategic rest means turning off the inputs. It means sitting in silence. It means going for a walk without a podcast in your ears. It's about giving your nervous system a chance to downregulate from fight or flight to rest and digest. 3. Creative rest. This is the rest that allows you to appreciate beauty and find inspiration. It's visiting a museum, walking in the woods, or listening to music. When you step away from the problem, your subconscious mind finally has the space to find the solution. This is why your best ideas always come in the shower. It's the only time you've stopped trying to think. 4. Social rest. For many of us, interacting with people, even people we like, is an energy drain. Social rest means spending time alone or with the few people who don't require you to be on. It's about detaching from the expectations of others so you can reconnect with yourself. Rest as a preemptive strike. The biggest mistake people make is waiting until they are tired to rest. By then, it's too late. You've already entered the deficit zone. Relentless people use preemptive rest. They rest when they feel good so that they continue to feel good. This might look like the 90-minute rule, working with total focus for 90 minutes and then taking a mandatory 15-minute break. Not a check your phone break, but a get up, stretch, drink water, and look at a tree break. It might look like a digital Sabbath, 1 day a week where the phone is off and the laptop is closed. It might look like a quarterly retreat, 3 days every 3 months where you go away to think and recover, far from the daily grind. When you schedule rest in advance, you remove the guilt. You don't feel like you're slackening off because the rest is part of the plan. You realize that by taking Saturday off, you are ensuring that Monday through Friday will be twice as productive. You aren't slowing down, you are sharpening the axe. The momentum paradox. There is a fear that if we stop, we will lose our edge. We fear that our competitors will pass us, that our ideas will go stale, or that we will lose the flow we worked so hard to find. But the paradox is this: the better you rest, the faster you can move when you return. Think of a bow and arrow. To fire the arrow with maximum force, you have to pull the string back. The tension of the pullback is what creates the power of the release. Rest is the pullback. If you never pull back, the arrow just falls limp at your feet. Burnout is what happens when you try to fire the arrow over and over again without ever resetting the string. Eventually, the bow snaps. When you embrace strategic rest, you find that your cruising speed increases. You don't have to try as hard to be productive because your mind is clear and your body is ready. You start to see patterns your competitors miss. You stay calm when everyone else is panicking. You are relentless not because you are running faster, but because you never have to stop to fix a breakdown. Actionable strategy. The recovery audit. I want you to look at your calendar for the next 7 days. How much of it is dedicated to strategic rest? If the answer is none, you are a ticking time bomb. Start small. Today, set a digital sunset. No screens 60 minutes before bed. Tomorrow, schedule 3 15-minute white space breaks where you do nothing but breathe. This weekend, block out 4 hours where you are unreachable. At first, this will feel uncomfortable. You will feel an itch to check your email. You will feel productive guilt. Lean into that discomfort. Remind yourself that you are currently in the pit stop. You are refueling. You are changing the tires. You are preparing for the next 200-mile-an-hour stint. Closing reflection. You were not designed to be a machine that runs 24/7. Even machines require maintenance. Relentlessness is a long-distance game. It is a marathon that lasts decades, not a sprint that lasts weeks. The people who finish first are not the ones who never sat down. They are the ones who knew exactly when to sit down so they would have the strength to climb the final mountain. Do not apologize for your need to recover. Do not feel ashamed of your need for silence. Your rest is an investment in your future greatness. It is the foundation upon which your legacy will be built. When the world tries to shame you into grinding through your exhaustion, look them in the eye and remember the truth. Recovery fuels momentum. Recovery fuels momentum. Recovery fuels momentum. Close your eyes. Take a breath. Reset. And then, when you're ready, go again. Chapter 6. Detach from emotional highs and lows. The pendulum of performance. Imagine your emotions are a pendulum. On one side, you have the high. This is the rush of landing a big client, hitting a personal best in the gym, or receiving a standing ovation. In this state, you feel invincible. You feel like you've finally made it. You're on a dopamine cloud, and you think this feeling will last forever. On the other side, you have the low. This is the crushing weight of a failed project, a stinging piece of criticism, or a day where nothing seems to go right. In this state, you feel like a fraud. You question your talent, your path, and your worth. You feel heavy, sluggish, and defeated. Most people spend their entire lives swinging violently between these two poles. They are mood-driven performers. When the pendulum is on the high side, they work like geniuses. When it swings to the low side, they can barely get out of bed. If you want to be relentless without burning out, you must stop the pendulum. You must detach your identity and your effort from these emotional spikes. Relentlessness is not found in the highs or the lows. It is found in the steady, neutral center. It is the ability to maintain a consistent output regardless of whether the world is cheering for you or laughing at you. The biological tax of volatility. We often talk about emotional exhaustion, but we rarely consider what that actually means for our bodies. When you experience an emotional high, your brain is flooded with dopamine and norepinephrine. It's an intoxicating cocktail that makes you feel energized. But here is the catch: every up has a physiological cost. Your nervous system has to work overtime to manage that state of arousal. When the high eventually fades, and it always does, your brain enters a refractory period. You crash. The lows are even more taxing. A setback triggers the fight or flight response. Your cortisol levels spike, your heart rate increases, and your brain's prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for logic and long-term planning, starts to shut down. You are literally less intelligent when you are emotionally spiraling. If you are constantly bouncing between I'm a god and I'm a loser, you are putting your nervous system through a blender. This internal volatility is one of the leading causes of burnout. It isn't the work that exhausts you. It's the emotional drama you attach to the work. Relentless people understand that emotions are just weather. The weather might be sunny today and stormy tomorrow, but the mountain doesn't move. You must become the mountain. Stay steady, stay moving. The success hangover. Most people understand that failure is hard, but few realize that success can be just as dangerous to your long-term momentum. When you have a big win, it's easy to become complacent. You start to believe your own hype. You think, I've worked hard, I deserve a break. You take your foot off the gas. You start making ego-based decisions rather than process-based decisions. This is the success hangover. Think of the one-hit wonder in music or the sophomore slump in sports. These athletes or artists hit an incredible peak and then disappear. Why? Because they fell in love with the high. They let the win get to their head, and they lost the very discipline that got them there in the first place. A relentless person treats a win like a data point, not a destination. When they win, they allow themselves a brief moment of acknowledgement, perhaps a nice dinner or a 5-minute smile, and then they immediately ask, what is the next step in the process? By neutralizing the high, they protect themselves from the inevitable crash. They don't let the dopamine distract them from the mission. Stay steady, stay moving. The resilience of the low. On the flip side, we have the low. For most, a significant failure feels like a wall. It stops them in their tracks. They spend days or weeks processing the pain, seeking sympathy, or wallowing in self-doubt. But failure is also just data. It is information telling you that your current strategy didn't work. It is not a reflection of your soul, it is a reflection of your tactics. The real-world example. Look at the most successful entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley. If you look at their history, it's a graveyard of failed startups. But if you talk to them, they don't describe those failures as tragedies. They describe them as expensive lessons. I once knew a founder who lost his entire company, 7 years of work, due to a legal technicality. Most people would have spent a year in a dark room. This man took his team to lunch, thanked them for their service, went home, slept for 8 hours, and started sketching the plan for his next venture the following morning. He wasn't heartless or unemotional. He was just detached. He realized that mourning the past wouldn't build the future. He didn't let the low dictate his identity. He treated the loss like a weather report. It's raining. Okay, I'll bring an umbrella. Because he didn't spiral, he saved his energy for the next climb. He stayed relentless because he refused to be an emotional hostage. Stay steady, stay moving. The power of neutrality. So, how do we achieve this state of detachment? It starts with a shift in focus. You must move from being outcome-obsessed to being standard-obsessed. An outcome-obsessed person says, if I sell 1,000 units, I'll be happy. If I don't, I'm a failure. They are at the mercy of the market. A standard-obsessed person says, my standard is to make 50 high-quality sales calls every day. Whether people buy or not, if I hit my 50 calls, I have succeeded. When your metric for success is your own effort, something you control, the external highs and lows lose their power over you. You become emotionally bulletproof. This doesn't mean you become a robot. It doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care so much about the long-term mission that you refuse to let short-term feelings derail you. You realize that your mission is too important to be sacrificed on the altar of your current mood. Strategy, the 24-hour rule. To help you implement this emotional detachment, I want you to adopt the 24-hour rule. This is a strategy used by some of the most successful coaches in the NFL. Whether you win the Super Bowl or lose by 40 points, you have exactly 24 hours to feel it. If you win, you have 24 hours to celebrate, to brag, to enjoy the champagne, and to feel like a king. But when that 24-hour clock hits zero, the win is dead. It is in the past. It no longer matters. You go back to the film room and start preparing for next week as if you are 0 and 0. If you lose, you have 24 hours to mourn, to be angry, to feel the sting of defeat, and to question everything. But when that 24-hour clock hits zero, the loss is dead. You stop complaining. You stop making excuses. You go back to the film room and start preparing for next week as if you are 0 and 0. This rule prevents the success hangover and the failure spiral. It forces you back into the neutral center. It ensures that your energy is always focused on the next move, not the last move. The Stoic Reserve. The ancient Stoics had a concept called equanimity. It was the ability to remain calm and stable regardless of external circumstances. They believed that while we cannot control what happens to us, we have absolute control over how we interpret what happens to us. When you practice equanimity, you develop a Stoic reserve. You become the person in the office who stays calm when the server crashes. You become the parent who stays patient when the house is in chaos. You become the athlete who stays focused when the crowd is booing. This calmness is a massive competitive advantage. While everyone else is wasting their cognitive energy on emotional reactions, you are using your energy on solutions. While everyone else is taking a day off to recover from a bad mood, you are stacking another brick. Relentlessness is a game of attrition. The person who can stay in the game the longest wins. And the person who stays in the game the longest is always the one who refuses to let their emotions burn them out. Practice. Data over drama. Next time something happens, good or bad, I want you to pause. Before you react, ask yourself, is this drama or is this data? My boss hated my presentation. Drama, I'm going to get fired, I'm terrible at this. Data, my boss prefers more visual slides and fewer bullet points. I will adjust the template for next time. I just hit a massive sales target. Drama, I'm the best in the world, I can afford to relax this month. Data, the current marketing strategy is working. I should increase the budget to see if it scales. When you translate drama into data, the emotional weight vanishes. You are left with a clear set of instructions. You are left with a path forward. Closing reflection. The world is a noisy, chaotic place. It will try to pull you into its drama every single day. It will try to make you feel like every win is a miracle and every loss is a catastrophe. Do not listen. Your journey is yours alone. Your pace is set by your standards, not by the world's reactions. If you want to reach the end of your life and know that you gave everything you had, you cannot afford to be a leaf in the wind, blown about by the highs and lows. You must be the wind itself. Steady, persistent, unstoppable. When things go well, don't celebrate too long. When things go poorly, don't mourn too long. Just get back to the work. Just take the next step. Just keep the pendulum still. In every moment, in every circumstance, remember your mantra. Stay steady, stay moving. Stay steady, stay moving. Stay steady, stay moving. The center is where the power is. Find it, and stay there. Chapter 7. Narrow your focus ruthlessly. The swamp of more. Imagine you are standing in a vast, flat field. You have a shovel in your hands and a simple goal. You need to find water. The average person, driven by a frantic desire to succeed, starts digging. They dig a hole 3 feet deep. They don't see water, so they get anxious. They move 10 feet to the left and dig another 3-foot hole. Still no water. They move again, and again, and again. By the end of the day, they have dug 50 different holes. They are covered in sweat, their back is aching, and they are utterly exhausted. They look around at their work and think, I've worked so hard today. I'm relentless. Why haven't I found any water? The answer is simple. Water isn't 3 feet down. It's 50 feet down. By digging 50 shallow holes, they haven't made progress. They've just created a mess. They have scattered their energy across a wide surface area, ensuring that they never reach the depth required for a breakthrough. This is the swamp of more. It is the state of being spread thin, and it is the primary reason why talented, hard-working people burn out without ever achieving greatness. Burnout doesn't usually come from the weight of your workload. It comes from the fragmentation of your focus. It comes from the soul-crushing feeling of running in 10 different directions and realizing you haven't actually moved an inch. To be truly relentless, you must have the courage to be narrow. You must stop trying to win every war and start focusing on the one battle that settles the map. The dilution of greatness. We live in an era that worships the multi-hyphenate. We are told we should be an entrepreneur, investor, author, influencer, athlete. We are told that diversification is the key to safety. But while diversification might be good for a stock portfolio, it is poison for human performance. Every time you add a new project to your plate, you aren't just adding work, you are dividing your existing power. If you have 100 units of ambition fuel and you have one project, that project gets 100 units of power. It moves fast. It becomes elite. If you have 5 projects, each one only gets 20 units. At 20% power, nothing becomes great. Everything stays okay. You become a jack of all trades and a master of none, and in a globalized world, the rewards don't go to the people who are okay at 5 things. They go to the person who is the absolute best in the world at one thing. Relentless people understand the law of focus. Focus multiplies effort. When you narrow your focus, your effort doesn't just add up, it compounds. You start to see the nuances that others miss. You build a momentum of mastery. You stop being a generalist who is easily replaced and start being a specialist who is indispensable. Real-world example, the power of the pivot. Consider the story of a software startup that was on the brink of collapse. They had a team of brilliant engineers working 80 hours a week. They were relentless in the traditional sense. They were building a platform that did everything. It was a photo-sharing app, a check-in service, and a gaming social network all rolled into one. They were exhausted. They were burning through cash. Users were confused because the app was clunky and too much. The founders were on the verge of burnout, wondering why their hard work wasn't paying off. Finally, they did something ruthless. They looked at their data and realized that 90% of their users were only using one tiny feature, the photo filters. The founders made a terrifying decision. They took the everything app and threw it in the trash. They cut the games. They cut the check-ins. They fired the features they had spent a year building. They narrowed their focus down to one single mission, making it easy to share beautiful photos. That app was Instagram. By cutting 90% of their work, they didn't become less successful. They became $1 billion company. Their productivity didn't just jump, it exploded. Because they were no longer scattered, every hour of engineering talent went toward making that one feature perfect. They didn't win by doing more. They won by doing less, better. The psychology of the lead domino. Why does narrowing your focus prevent burnout? It's because of a psychological phenomenon called progress feedback. Human beings are wired to thrive on a sense of forward motion. When we see a goal getting closer, our brain releases dopamine, which reduces our perception of fatigue. It's why a marathon runner feels a second wind when they see the finish line. When you have 10 different goals, you never see a finish line. You are always at the beginning of something. You never get that hit of completion. You are constantly in the middle, which is the most exhausting place to be. However, when you focus on one lead domino, the one goal that, if achieved, makes all your other goals easier or unnecessary, you start to see rapid progress. You knock that domino over, and the momentum from that win carries you into the next. Focusing on one thing is the ultimate cure for decision fatigue. You no longer have to wake up and wonder what is important. You know what is important. The mission is clear. This clarity eliminates the mental friction that causes burnout. It allows you to put all your weight behind a single punch. The good is the enemy of the great. The hardest part of narrowing your focus isn't saying no to things that are stupid or a waste of time. Anyone can do that. The real challenge of relentlessness is saying no to things that are good. You will have good ideas. You will have good opportunities. You will meet good people who want to collaborate on good projects. But if you say yes to every good thing, you will never have the space, time, or energy for the great thing. Think of your life like a garden. If you want to grow a giant, prize-winning pumpkin, you cannot let the garden be filled with hundreds of small flowers. Even though the flowers are beautiful, they are stealing the nutrients, the water, and the sunlight from the pumpkin. To grow the giant, you must be a ruthless gardener. You must pull up the flowers. You must prune the healthy branches to force all the plant's energy into the one fruit that matters. Relentless people are master pruners. They are willing to look like they are missing out in the short term because they know what they are building in the long term. They understand that a no to a distraction is a yes to their legacy. Strategy, the 3-list filter. To help you narrow your focus ruthlessly, I want you to use the 3-list filter. List 1, the everything list. Write down every single project, goal, and to-do that is currently taking up space in your head. Career goals, fitness goals, hobbies, side hustles, get it all out. Usually, this list has 20 to 30 items. List 2, the top 5. Look at list 1 and pick the 5 things that are most important to you right now. These are the things that actually have the potential to change your life. List 3, the avoid at all costs list. This is the most important list. You take the 15 to 25 items you didn't pick for the top 5 and you put them here. These are not things you will get to later. These are things you are forbidden from touching until your top 5 are complete. Why? Because those items are the most dangerous distractions. They are things you care about enough to spend energy on, but not enough to win at. They are the shallow holes that will keep you from reaching the water. The freedom of the narrow path. There is a common fear that narrowing your focus will make your life small or boring. But the opposite is true. When you narrow your focus, you finally experience the depth of life. You experience the flow state that only comes from total immersion in a craft. You experience the thrill of being at the frontier of your field, where you are doing work that no one else can do. There is a profound freedom in having only one thing to worry about. It simplifies your schedule, your relationships, and your inner world. It allows you to sleep better at night because you aren't haunted by the ghosts of 9 unfinished projects. Relentlessness isn't about being a beast of burden who can carry everything. It's about being a spearhead that can pierce anything. Actionable strategy. The 90-day sprint. For the next 90 days, I want you to pick one core mission. If you are a writer, your mission is the book. Not the podcast, not the social media growth, not the speaking tour. The book. If you are an entrepreneur, your mission is the product market fit. Not the fancy office, not the networking events, not the branding. The product. Every morning, for the first 4 hours of your day, you work on that one mission. You ignore the good opportunities. You let the small flowers in your garden wilt a little bit. At the end of those 90 days, you will be shocked at how much progress you've made. You will feel more energized than you have in years, despite the hard work. Why? Because you finally saw the needle move. You finally hit the water. Closing reflection. The world will always try to distract you. It will tell you that you're falling behind if you aren't doing everything. It will try to lure you back into the swamp of more. Stand your ground. Understand that your energy is a precious, finite resource. If you scatter it, you waste it. If you focus it, you become a force of nature. Stop digging shallow holes. Choose your spot. Commit to the depth. Trust that by doing less, you are actually becoming more. When the temptation to add more to your plate arises, remember the secret of the relentless. Focus multiplies effort. Focus multiplies effort. Focus multiplies effort. Narrow the path. Aim the laser. Break through. Chapter 8. Make progress non-negotiable. The Grand Slam fallacy. Think about the last time you decided to change your life. Perhaps you decided you were finally going to get into peak physical shape, or you were going to write that business plan, or you were going to master a new language. How did you start? If you're like most people, you started with a Grand Slam mentality. You told yourself, starting Monday, I'm going to the gym for 2 hours every day. I'm going to cut out all sugar, drink a gallon of water, and wake up at 5 a.m. For 3 days, you were a hero. You hit the Grand Slam. But then, life happened. You had a late night at work. The kids got sick. You woke up with a headache. On Thursday, you couldn't do the 2 hours. You couldn't do the 5 a.m. wake up. And because you couldn't hit the Grand Slam, you did nothing at all. You told yourself, I'll start again next week when things are less chaotic. This is the all-or-nothing trap. It is the belief that if progress isn't massive and visible, it doesn't count. But this mindset is the ultimate enemy of relentlessness. Relentlessness isn't about the size of the step. It's about the fact that the foot moved. To be relentless without burning out, you must shift your focus from maximum effort to non-negotiable progress. You need to stop swinging for the fences every day and start focusing on never, ever missing a day at the plate. The power of the low floor. Most people set high ceilings, ambitious goals that represent their best-case scenario. I will write 2,000 words today. I will make 50 sales calls today. High ceilings are great for inspiration, but they are terrible for consistency. On your bad days, the days when you are tired, stressed, or overwhelmed, a high ceiling feels like a mountain you can't climb. So, you don't even try. Relentless people do the opposite. They set low floors. A low floor is a minimum daily standard of progress that is so small, it feels almost embarrassing. It is a goal that you can achieve even on your absolute worst day. Instead of work out for an hour, the low floor is put on my gym clothes and do 1 push-up. Instead of write a chapter, the low floor is write 1 paragraph. Instead of meditate for 30 minutes, the low floor is take 3 deep breaths. The magic of the low floor is that it removes the friction of starting. When the goal is 1 push-up, your brain can't argue with you. It doesn't take willpower to do 1 push-up. It doesn't take motivation to write one paragraph. But here is the secret. Once you've put on your gym clothes and done that one push-up, you've overcome the hardest part of any task, the inertia of sitting still. Most of the time, once you've started, you'll keep going. You'll end up doing 20 push-ups or writing 3 pages. But even if you don't, even if you do exactly one push-up and then go back to bed, you have won. Why? Because you kept the habit alive. You kept the streak. You proved to your subconscious mind that your progress is non-negotiable. You didn't break the chain. Small wins compound. The mathematics of the 1%. We often underestimate the power of small, consistent actions because we want immediate results. We live in a world of overnight success stories, and we feel like if we aren't seeing a massive transformation in 30 days, we are failing. But let's look at the math. If you get 1% better at something every day for a year, you don't just get 365% better. Because of the power of compounding, you actually end up 37 times better than when you started. If you write just 1 page a day, at the end of a year, you have a 365-page manuscript. That is a full-length novel. If you try to write that book in one intense month, you will likely burn out and quit by day 10. But by making the progress small and non-negotiable, the book becomes an inevitability. The person who writes 1 page a day, every day, will always outperform the genius who writes 20 pages once a month. The person who walks 20 minutes a day, every day, will always be healthier than the person who runs a marathon once a year and then sits on the couch for the other 364 days. Relentlessness is simply the refusal to have a 0 day. A 0 day is a day where you do nothing toward your goal. When you have a 0 day, you aren't just staying in place, you are losing momentum. You are making it easier to have a second 0 day, and a third. But when you commit to a low floor, you ensure that every day is a win day. And those wins, no matter how small, start to stack. Small wins compound. The neurochemistry of the streak. There is a biological reason why non-negotiable progress works so well. Every time you complete a task, even a tiny one, your brain releases a small amount of dopamine. This is the reward chemical. When you set a massive goal and fail to hit it, your brain experiences a dopamine crash. You feel discouraged, sluggish, and unmotivated. This makes it even harder to try again tomorrow. This is the cycle of burnout. But when you set a tiny goal and hit it, you get a dopamine hit. You feel a sense of accomplishment. Your brain says, "Hey, we're winners. We did what we said we were going to do." This creates a positive feedback loop. You wake up the next day wanting to do it again because your brain is seeking that next hit of success. This is the power of the streak. Once you have done something for 5, 10, or 30 days in a row, you develop what psychologists call loss aversion. You don't want to break the streak. The desire to keep the chain going becomes a more powerful motivator than the task itself. The task becomes part of your identity. You stop being someone who is trying to write a book and you become a writer. And writers write every day. It's just what they do. By making progress non-negotiable, you are literally rewiring your brain to see success as your natural state. Real-world example, the $1 million page. I once knew a consultant named David who wanted to start a newsletter to grow his business. For 2 years, he talked about it. He had a list of 50 perfect topics. He had designed a beautiful logo, but he hadn't sent a single email. Why? Because he was waiting for the perfect time to write a perfect 2,000-word deep dive. He was aiming for a grand slam. Finally, David got fed up with his own lack of progress. He made a new rule. He would write exactly 100 words a day. That was his low floor. He could write more if he wanted, but he had to write 100. At first, he felt ridiculous. What's the point of 100 words, he thought. That's just a couple of paragraphs. But because the goal was so small, he did it. He did it on days he was busy. He did it on days he was on vacation. After 30 days, he had 3,000 words, enough for 3 newsletters. He sent them out. The feedback was great. That gave him the dopamine he needed to keep going. Within a year, he had sent 50 newsletters, built an audience of 10,000 people, and landed 3 of the biggest contracts of his career. David didn't become a successful creator because he was a genius. He became successful because he stopped negotiating with himself. He made 100 words a day his non-negotiable standard. He realized that a small, imperfect action taken every day is infinitely more powerful than a perfect plan that never happens. Small wins compound. The sore day strategy. One of the biggest obstacles to being relentless is the sore day. This is the day when you are physically exhausted, emotionally drained, or just plain over it. On a sore day, your high-ceiling goal is impossible. If you try to force it, you will burn out. But this is exactly when the non-negotiable rule is most important. The goal on a sore day isn't to make great progress, it's just to make any progress. If you are a runner and you're exhausted, don't run 5 miles. Just walk to the end of the block and back. Why? Because you are telling your brain, we don't quit. Even when it's hard, we move. If you are an entrepreneur and you're burnt out, don't try to solve the company's 5-year strategy. Just answer one important email. When you maintain your non-negotiable standard on your hardest days, you build a level of mental toughness that cannot be bought. You learn that you are stronger than your excuses. You build a momentum of the soul that carries you through the dark times. You realize that burnout isn't caused by doing too much, it's caused by the guilt of doing nothing. By doing something, even a tiny thing, you eliminate the guilt and keep the engine running. How to set your non-negotiables. To implement this in your own life, you need to define your atomic standards. Pick your biggest, most important goal. Now, what is the smallest possible unit of progress for that goal? If your goal is to be fit, the non-negotiable is 5 minutes of movement. If your goal is to grow your business, the non-negotiable is 1 reach out. If your goal is to learn a skill, the non-negotiable is 10 minutes of study. Write these down. Make them your law. You can do more, but you can never do less. The key is to make them so easy that you have no excuse. If your non-negotiable requires willpower, it's too big. Shrink it until it feels easy. Shrink it until it feels like a gimme. Then, track it. Put a calendar on your wall and put a big red X through every day you hit your minimum. Your only job in life is to not break that chain of excess. The inevitability of success. When you make progress non-negotiable, you remove the stress of achievement. You stop worrying about when the big result will come, because you know that as long as the chain isn't broken, the result is mathematically inevitable. You stop being obsessed with the peak of the mountain and start being obsessed with the rhythm of your feet. Relentlessness is not a series of heroics. It is a series of small, boring, unglamorous wins that no one else sees. It is the page written in the middle of the night. It is the 1 push-up done in a hotel room. It is the 1 phone call made when you wanted to go home. These tiny actions are the bricks of your legacy. 1 brick is nothing. But 1 brick a day, every day, without fail, eventually becomes a cathedral. Do not look for the grand slam today. Just look for the X on the calendar. Trust the process. Trust the math. Remember, small wins compound. Small wins compound. Small wins compound. Step small. Move daily. Never stop. Chapter 9. Redefine pressure as privilege. The crushing weight. Imagine you are standing in a tunnel. At the end of that tunnel is a bright light, but between you and that light stands a massive, invisible weight. You can feel it pressing down on your shoulders. It makes your breathing shallow. It makes your heart beat like a trapped bird against your ribs. It makes your palms damp and your thoughts race. This weight has a name. We call it pressure. For most people, pressure is a signal to retreat. When the stakes get high, when the deadline is looming, when the investment is on the line, when the eyes of the crowd are fixed on them, they interpret that feeling as danger. Their brain enters a state of threat response. They start thinking about what happens if they fail. They start looking for the nearest exit. They view the pressure as a burden, a tax they have to pay for their ambition, and eventually, that weight becomes too much to carry. They burn out not because of the work, but because of the constant, agonizing friction of carrying a weight they believe shouldn't be there. But there is a small group of people who see that same weight differently. They don't see it as a burden. They see it as a badge of honor. They don't see it as a threat, they see it as a privilege. They understand a fundamental truth of the human experience. If you are feeling pressure, it is because you are doing something that matters. To be relentless without burning out, you must fundamentally change your relationship with stress. You must move from escaping the pressure to embracing it. You must realize that pressure is the primary fuel for greatness. The physiology of the flip. Before we can change our mindset, we have to understand our biology. When you feel pressured, your body releases a cascade of chemicals, adrenaline, cortisol, and norepinephrine. This is often called the fight or flight response. Here is the secret that high performers know. The physiological state of anxiety and the physiological state of excitement are almost identical. In both states, your heart rate increases, your pupils dilate, and your breath quickens. Your body is simply preparing itself for high-stakes action. It is handing you a massive surge of energy. The difference between a person who burns out and a person who thrives is the label they put on that energy. The average person labels it anxiety. They tell themselves, "I'm nervous. I'm scared. I hope this ends soon." This label triggers a threat state in the brain. It causes the prefrontal cortex, the logical, creative part of your mind, to shut down. You become clumsy, reactive, and easily exhausted. The relentless person labels it preparation. They tell themselves, "My body is getting ready to perform. My heart is beating fast because I need oxygen for my brain. I am pumped. I am ready." This label triggers a challenge state. Your brain stays online. Your focus narrows. You enter a state of heightened awareness. Burnout happens when you spend years fighting against your own biology. Performance happens when you learn to ride the wave of your biology. You don't need to calm down. You need to fire up. You need to realize that pressure means you care. Pressure as a signal of significance. Think about the moments in your life where you felt zero pressure. Maybe you were sitting on the couch watching a rerun of a show you've seen 10 times. Maybe you were doing a menial task that required no thought. In those moments, you were safe, but were you alive? Were you growing? Were you moving toward your legacy? Of course not. Pressure is a signaling mechanism. It is the universe's way of telling you, pay attention. This is important. If you are feeling pressure about a presentation, it's because you care about your career. If you feel pressure about a difficult conversation with a partner, it's because you care about the relationship. If you feel pressure about a new business venture, it's because you care about your freedom. The people who have the most stressful lives are often the ones who have the most meaningful lives. The only people who feel no pressure are the ones who aren't doing anything. The legendary tennis player Billie Jean King famously said, "Pressure is a privilege." She meant that to be in a position where your actions have consequences, where people are watching, where the outcome matters, where you have the opportunity to win or lose, is a rare and beautiful gift. Most people in the world are spectators. They sit in the stands and watch others take the risks. They have no pressure because they have no skin in the game. If you are feeling the weight, it means you are no longer a spectator. You are a gladiator. You are in the arena. That weight is the proof that you are playing at a high level. Pressure means you care. Real-world example, the surgeon's hands. Consider a world-class neurosurgeon. They are about to perform a 10-hour surgery on a delicate part of the human brain. The margin for error is measured in millimeters. The pressure is immense. A single mistake could change a patient's life forever. If that surgeon viewed that pressure as a threat, they would be paralyzed. Their hands would shake. They would be burnt out by the end of their first month. Instead, the elite surgeon reframes the pressure. They see it as a privilege of their expertise. They tell themselves, "I am the one the world has chosen for this task because I have the skill to handle it. The pressure I feel is the weight of my responsibility, and I embrace that responsibility." They use the adrenaline of the pressure to sustain their focus for 10 straight hours. They don't fight the stress, they use it to lock in. They don't go home feeling drained, they go home feeling spent in the best possible way. They feel the deep satisfaction that only comes from performing at your limit under high stakes. They stay relentless for decades because they never see their work as a burden. They see it as an honor. Reframing the burnout narrative. One of the main drivers of burnout is the story we tell ourselves about our stress. We say things like, "My job is killing me," or "I can't handle this much pressure," or "I'm drowning." These stories create a victim mentality. When you are a victim of your circumstances, you are powerless. And powerlessness is the fastest route to psychological collapse. To be relentless, you must rewrite the narrative. Instead of "I have to do this," say "I get to do this." Instead of "this is too much for me," say "this is the level I have earned the right to play at." Instead of "I'm falling apart," say "I'm being tested and tempered." When you reframe pressure as a privilege, you reclaim your power. You realize that you aren't drowning in work. You are training in the deep end. You realize that the very things that are stressing you out are the things you once prayed for. Think back to 5 years ago. Weren't you wishing for the opportunities you have now? Weren't you dreaming of having this much responsibility, this much influence, or this much potential? The pressure you feel today is the answered prayer of your past self. Don't complain about the weight of the crown you asked to wear. Pressure means you care. Strategy, the anxiety appraisal. How do you do this in the moment? When you feel that surge of pressure before a big event, I want you to use a technique called anxiety appraisal. Research from Harvard Business School found that people who simply said the words "I am excited" out loud before a high-pressure task performed significantly better than those who tried to say "I am calm." By saying "I am excited," you aren't trying to lower your energy, you are simply giving that energy a positive home. You are telling your brain that the racing heart is a good thing. The next time you feel the weight, acknowledge the sensation. "Okay, my heart is racing. My palms are sweaty." Identify the source. "This is happening because I'm about to do something important." Apply the label. "This is pressure. This is a privilege. I am excited to show what I can do." Lean in. Use that extra adrenaline to move faster, speak clearer, and think sharper. The diamond metaphor. We all know how diamonds are made. A diamond is just a piece of coal that handled pressure exceptionally well. If you take a piece of coal and leave it in a safe, low-pressure environment, it stays coal forever. It is soft, it is dark, and it is easily crushed. But if you subject that coal to intense, unrelenting pressure over a long period of time, the molecular structure changes. It becomes one of the hardest, most beautiful substances on Earth. You are the same. Burnout is what happens when you resist the pressure, causing the coal to crumble. Relentlessness is what happens when you align with the pressure, allowing it to compress your potential into a diamond. The pressure isn't trying to break you. It's trying to refine you. It's trying to strip away the soft parts of your character, the procrastination, the self-doubt, the laziness, and leave behind only the hard parts, the discipline, the clarity, and the resolve. Closing reflection. The world is looking for people who can handle the weight. Most people will drop it. Most people will run for the shadows where it's safe. But not you. You are going to walk toward the light. You are going to feel the weight on your shoulders, and you are going to stand up straighter. You are going to feel your heart racing, and you are going to smile, because you know that the thump 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 in your chest is the sound of a person who is truly alive. Do not pray for an easy life. Pray for the strength to handle a difficult one. Do not ask for less pressure. Ask for more capacity. When you find yourself in the eye of the storm, when the stakes are at their highest and the world is waiting to see if you will crack, take a deep breath. Feel the surge of energy flowing through your veins. Remember that you are exactly where you are supposed to be. Look at the challenge in the eye and say, "Thank you for the opportunity." Because in the end, the pressure is the proof. Pressure means you care. Pressure means you care. Pressure means you care. Wear the weight. Win the game. Stay relentless. Chapter 10. Become process-driven, not outcome-obsessed. The arrival fallacy. Imagine you have spent the last 3 years climbing a mountain. It has been the hardest thing you've ever done. You've endured freezing temperatures, physical exhaustion, and moments of deep loneliness. But you kept going because you were obsessed with the summit. You told yourself, "When I reach the top, everything will change. I will be happy. I will be fulfilled. I will finally be able to relax. Finally, the day arrives. You take the final step. You stand on the peak. You look out over the world. It is beautiful for exactly 5 minutes. Then, a strange feeling begins to creep in. It's not joy. It's not peace. It's an empty, hollow ache in the center of your chest. You realize that the summit is just a cold, windy piece of rock. You realize that you have nowhere left to climb. You realize that the goal didn't change who you are. This is what psychologists call the arrival fallacy. It is the mistaken belief that reaching a destination will provide lasting happiness. Most people are outcome obsessed. They live for the promotion, the bank balance, the trophy, or the likes. But the problem with outcomes is that they are fleeting. Once you achieve them, the dopamine disappears, and you are left with a what now void. This is one of the most common drivers of burnout. You work yourself to the bone for a result, and when the result doesn't make you feel the way you expected, you lose your why. You feel betrayed by your own ambition. To be truly relentless, to be the kind of person who can stay in the game for 40 years and still love every second of it, you must undergo a fundamental transformation. You must move your source of joy from the outcome to the process. The slavery of results. When you are obsessed with outcomes, you are a slave. You are a slave to the market. You are a slave to your boss's opinion. You are a slave to the algorithm. You are a slave to luck. Because you cannot 100% control the outcome, your emotional state is always at the mercy of external forces. If things go well, you're up. If things go poorly, you're down. This emotional volatility, as we discussed in Chapter 6, is what drains your battery. But there is a deeper danger. Outcome obsession makes you cut corners. When you only care about the win, you start to see the work itself as an obstacle. The work becomes something you have to get through to get to the prize. You start to resent the daily grind. You start to look for shortcuts. And ironically, by looking for shortcuts, you decrease the quality of your work, which makes the win less likely. A relentless person reverses this. They realize that the outcome is just a byproduct. It is the shadow cast by the work. You don't chase the shadow, you focus on the object casting it. You realize that while you cannot control if you win the race, you can absolutely control the quality of your stride. The master's mindset. Think about the true masters in any field. The Japanese sushi chef who has been making the same rice for 50 years, the master carpenter, the legendary writer. If you ask these people why they are still working, they don't talk about the money or the fame. They have plenty of both. They talk about the feel of the knife. They talk about the grain of the wood. They talk about the rhythm of the sentence. They have fallen in love with the activity. To them, a good day isn't a day where they got a 5-star review. A good day is a day where they practiced their craft with total presence. They have moved their reward system from the outside world to their own internal standards. When you become process-driven, you become invincible. Why? Because no one can take the work away from you. If the market crashes, you can still practice your craft. If you get fired, you can still sharpen your skills. If no one applauds, you still have the satisfaction of a job well done. You are no longer waiting for a payday to feel successful. You feel successful at 9 a.m. when you start the work. You feel successful at 2 p.m. when you solve a difficult problem. You feel successful at 5 p.m. when you close your laptop knowing you gave it your best. Relentlessness is what happens when the work itself is the reward. Fall in love with the work. Real-world example, the infinite game of success. Consider a professional athlete named David. David spent his entire youth obsessed with winning an Olympic gold medal. That was his outcome. Every day of training was a sacrifice. He hated the early mornings, he hated the diet, and he hated the pain. But he did it for the medal. At age 24, David won the gold. He stood on the podium, cried, and went home. 2 months later, he was in a deep depression. He had achieved his outcome, and now his life felt meaningless. He had no reason to get out of bed. He had burnt out at the very moment of his greatest success. Now, consider another athlete named Sarah. Sarah loves the feeling of being fast. She loves the science of nutrition. She loves the community of her teammates. She loves the meditative state of a long run. She also wants to win a gold medal, but that's not why she shows up. Sarah competes in the Olympics and comes in fourth. She misses the medal by a fraction of a second. An outcome-obsessed person would be devastated. They would see the last 4 years as a waste of time. But Sarah isn't devastated. She is disappointed for a day, but on Monday, she is back on the track. Why? Because she didn't lose anything. She still gets to run. She still gets to improve. She still loves the process. Sarah will stay in the sport for another 10 years. Eventually, she will probably win that medal, but by then, she won't even need it. She has already won because she found a way to enjoy the journey. Sarah is playing what James Cass calls the infinite game. The goal of a finite game is to win and end the game. The goal of an infinite game is to keep playing. Relentlessness is the ability to keep playing. Fall in love with the work. How to shift your focus. How do you actually do this? How do you stop caring about the results when the results are what pay your bills? It requires a rerouting of your dopamine. 1. Set process goals instead of outcome goals. Instead of I want to lose 20 pounds, outcome, set the goal I want to sweat for 30 minutes today, process. Instead of I want to close $10,000 in sales, set the goal I want to make 20 high-quality connections. 2. Measure the effort, not the applause. At the end of the day, don't ask, did people like what I did? Ask, did I adhere to my standards? Did I protect my cognitive energy? Did I follow my system? If the answer is yes, you had a perfect day, regardless of what the scoreboard says. 3. Find the microjoys in the mundane. Every job has boring parts. But even in the boring parts, there is mastery to be found. Find the beauty in a well-organized spreadsheet. Find the art in a clear email. Find the satisfaction in a clean workspace. When you find joy in the small things, the big things take care of themselves. 4. Practice detached engagement. This is the ultimate state of the relentless. You are 100% engaged in the task. You are giving it your all, you are focused, you are passionate, but you are detached from the result. You do the best work possible, and then you release it to the world. What the world does with it is none of your business. Your business was the creation. The ultimate cure for burnout. Burnout is the result of a transactional relationship with your life. You are saying, I will give my effort in exchange for this result. When the result is delayed, or smaller than expected, you feel cheated. You feel exhausted. But when your relationship with your life is transformational, burnout disappears. You are saying, I give my effort because this effort is who I am. When the work is the reward, you can't be exhausted by it. You are actually energized by it. You become a closed-loop system. You produce energy through the very act of spending it. This is the secret of the greats. This is how they can work 12-hour days for 40 years without ever losing their edge. They aren't pushing themselves toward a finish line. They are flowing through a process. They aren't grinding, they are practicing. Closing the book, The Relentless Philosophy. We have traveled through 10 chapters together. We have dismantled the myths of the blind hustle and the iron will. We have learned that direction creates energy. Consistency beats intensity every time. Systems remove friction. Energy is a resource, not a mood. Recovery fuels momentum. Stay steady, stay moving. Focus multiplies effort. Small wins compound. Pressure means you care. But all of these principles are held together by this final truth. You must fall in love with the work. If you follow the systems, and you protect your energy, and you narrow your focus, but you still hate the actual doing of your life, you will eventually stop. You will eventually burn out. Relentlessness is not a burden. It is a love affair. It is the deep, quiet, indestructible joy of doing something well. It is the pride of the craftsman. It is the calm of the professional. It is the steady heartbeat of the person who knows that they are exactly where they are supposed to be, doing exactly what they were meant to do. The world will try to pull you away from this. It will try to make you outcome obsessed. It will try to make you blindly intense. It will try to make you emotionally volatile. When that happens, I want you to come back to these pages. I want you to remember that your power doesn't come from the world's applause. It comes from your own clarity. It comes from your own systems. It comes from your own discipline. You are a relentless machine, not because you never stop, but because you know exactly how to keep going. You are the master of your energy, the guardian of your focus, and the architect of your own momentum. Now, take a deep breath. Look at the task in front of you. Forget the prize. Forget the mountain. Forget the crowd. Just pick up the tool. Just take the step. Just do the work. Fall in love with the work. Fall in love with the work. Fall in love with the work. Go be relentless. End of chapter 10. End of audiobook.